Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. Today, the EPA is set to visit eastern Ohio after a train derailment spill caused possible major contamination. Plus, good news clubs and public schools are being targeted by after-school Satan clubs.
We should not be subjecting our children to this.
We can't be so afraid of being mocked or called names or canceled that we open the door wide open to evil in our community and most importantly to our children.
We'll have more on the growing threat and how people are responding. Then later, it's a high-profile square-off in Texas as abortion rights and pro-life advocates battle over abortion pills.
Not just obviously harming women in terms of the sepsis and the hemorrhaging, the fact that they're being sent to the emergency room. 1 in 10 women are being sent to the emergency room after starting this chemical abortion process.
Pastor James Harden talks more about why this abortion method should be banned. All these stories and more are coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin with the head of the EPA traveling to eastern Ohio today amid concerns about contamination in the wake of that fiery and toxic train derailment. Dale Hurd has more in our top story.
Residents of the Ohio village that was the site of that toxic train derailment 2 weeks ago packed a school gym Wednesday evening, wanting to know if it's still safe to live in their town.
How should us kids feel safe with the smell rush?
My grandson, who's 11, has multiple rashes on his extremities.
The Norfolk Southern train carrying an estimated 1 million pounds of vinyl chloride, a chemical used to make plastic, derailed February 3rd, causing a fire that burned for days and prompting officials to carry out a controlled burn of the hazardous chemicals. 5,000 residents of East Palestine were evacuated. They were allowed back last week, but some are reporting sore throats, burning eyes, and vomiting. Many pets died, as did thousands of fish in local waterways. Norfolk Southern did not come to the community meeting yesterday, citing security concerns, saying, "We know that many are rightfully angry and frustrated right now. We have become increasingly concerned about the growing physical threat to our employees." State officials insist the city water supply is safe. Governor Mike DeWine was asked how he can reassure people who feel at risk because the odor of the chemicals is still in the air.
The only thing we can do is simply tell them what the scientists tell us, and that is that the smell can linger and be there long after when there's no discernible problem with the air.
A class action lawsuit has already been filed against Norfolk Southern, and Ohio's Attorney General says he's considering legal action against the rail operator. Republican Senators Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance sent a letter to U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg on Wednesday, questioning his oversight of the U.S. freight rail system. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Overseas, 10 days after Turkey's massive earthquakes, search and rescue operations are nearly over and the time of recovery has begun. Chris Mitchell is on the ground inside Turkey as attention also turns to the need for humanitarian aid.
Most international search and rescue teams have left the country, leaving behind a record of amazing rescues, such as Israel's United Hatzalah team, which pulled 15 people out of the rubble. Still, the growing death toll and collapsed buildings serve as a sobering reminder of the tragedy. The earthquake zone stretches for nearly 300 miles, indicating how massive the rebuilding program will encompass, which includes the lives of millions of earthquake victims. That's why Operation Blessing is on the ground.
One of the immediate needs of the people affected by the earthquake is hot food, like distributed by this Operation Blessing team in this neighborhood in Hatay.
God gave this opportunity to Operation Blessing, to bless them, to love them, to listen to them, cry with them, and pray with them.
You came. You found us. We thank all of you. God bless you. You gave us food. We are waiting for all of your support and help.
The help includes clothes taken to these people living in tents as nighttime temperatures reach below freezing, and also the distribution of these food boxes.
Thank you very much, Operation Blessing. You are welcome. We feel appreciated. We want you to continue helping.
For the adults, the earthquake is clearly life-changing. For children, many are afraid to go back into their homes, even if they're still standing.
You can see in their faces, even when they kind of sit and think, there's fear.
That's why OB volunteer Karen Cochran stepped in.
I just ran in and I just kind of organized some games, and we were playing Duck, Duck, Goose, and we were playing tag and singing and dancing and running around. And
for Karen, Amir, and the entire team, it's about sharing God's love. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Hatay, Turkey.
Great to see Operation Blessing at work there. Well, here at home, how safe are the skies over America? That's what senators want to know after 2023 kicked off with air traffic problems and near misses that could have led to catastrophe. CBN News Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka has the story.
Southwest aboard. FedEx is on the go.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz had his office recreate this scenario based on the flight data. It happened at Austin's airport on February 4th. A FedEx plane came within 100 feet of colliding with a Southwest passenger jet carrying 128 people.
It is only through, as I understand it, the heroism of the pilots being alert and seeing what was happening that tragedy was averted. And yet, my question is, how can this happen?
Acting FAA Administrator Billy Nolan says while the incident remains under investigation, there was low visibility that day in Austin.
It is not what we would expect to have happen. But when we think about the controls, how we train both our controllers and our pilot, the system works as it's designed to avert what you say could have been a horrific outcome.
The near catastrophe is one of many incidents shining a spotlight on the FAA over the past few months. A notice to air missions or NOTAM system outage temporarily grounded all air traffic in January. After keeping all planes out of the sky for the first time since 9/11, we learned the harm was apparently self-inflicted.
The FAA's preliminary findings are that contract personnel unintentionally deleted files while working to correct synchronization issues between the live primary database and the backup database.
Nolan told senators changes have been made to prevent the issue from happening again, although the system is still in need of modernization, which means more federal funding.
Instead of it focusing on safety, the FAA and DOT were working hard to change NOTAM's name from Notice to Airmen to Notice to Air Missions. I would suggest instead the focus should have been on making sure the thing worked.
Matt Galka, CBN News.
There was another near collision last month at JFK Airport in New York when a jet crossed onto another runway. The FAA promised to form a safety review team and hold a safety summit in order to address new risks in the sky. The Church of England is considering using gender-neutral language to refer to God instead of masculine terms. The church plans to look at the idea in the months ahead after a request from some of its priests. Any changes to the words in prayers or other liturgies using God the Father and Jesus Christ, God the Son, would have to be approved by the church's governing body. Some conservatives have already criticized the church's announcement. The Reverend Dr. Ian Paul told the Telegraph newspaper that such a move would mean abandoning the church's own doctrine. Coming up, a new after-school program might be coming to your school district, and it's one sponsored by the Satanic Temple. You'll see how parents are fighting back against what they're calling evil in their communities. After-school Satan clubs have drawn national attention in the last year. They've been targeting the good news clubs in public schools. Heather Sells brings us this look at the threat and how the good news clubs are responding.
Centerpoint Community Church in Chesapeake, Virginia started volunteering at B.M. Williams Elementary in 2015, offering back-to-school backpacks, caring for the grounds, and sponsoring teacher lunches. Last fall, it received permission to start a Good News Club.
It really was just the next logical step. We had this group that was already ministering to these families, already had relationships.
What Williams and the church didn't see coming, the after-school Satan Club. It applied to meet here at this same elementary where the church had just started its Good News Club.
We should not be subjecting our children to this.
Uproar quickly followed as parents clearly stated their opposition to the school board.
I oppose this application fundamentally because I view it as a deceptive attempt at a wolf in sheep's clothing.
We can't be so afraid of being mocked or called names or canceled that we open the door wide open to evil in our community and, most importantly, to our children.
In recent years, the Satanic Temple has crisscrossed the country, applying to start after-school Satan clubs in California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Virginia. It makes no secret of its strategy, targeting schools where the Good News clubs already serve children. Its rationale: provide another viewpoint. Satanic Club spokeswoman June Everett told the Chesapeake School Board she got involved after a Good News Club teacher sponsor scared her first grader.
He went on to tell me how he was going to burn in hell, be taken away from everyone that he knew and loved, his mom, his dad, Molly, our dog at the time, if we didn't start going to church and accept Jesus Christ into our hearts.
Satan's not an evil God.
Core beliefs for the Satan Club include a denial of hell and portraying Satan as simply an imaginary friend for kids. Organizers point to the main goal: teach children to think critically. Everett maintains while the Satan clubs don't seek to convert, the Good News clubs do.
We do take issue with their proselytizing that they use to get kids that aren't part of the club to convert. We don't do that.
The reality is we're sharing the truth of God's word, which is an eternal truth.
Good News Club spokesman Fred Pry says the clubs are all about the gospel.
Jesus said in his last command that we should go into all the world, and that includes going to children.
Child Evangelism Fellowship sponsors clubs in the U.S. and around the world. In 2021, it conducted 55,000 meetings, reaching more than 15 million kids. In 2001, a pivotal Supreme Court ruling allowed them into the public school space here at home.
Our Good News clubs took off after that decision.
What is Good News Club?
Pry describes the clubs as a high-powered Sunday school with Bible teaching, music, and lots of engagement. He disputes the Satan Club's accusation that they're trying to scare children.
We simply say the punishment for sin is separation from God eternally. We don't describe hell.
And he acknowledges the Good News clubs encourage children to talk about Jesus with their friends.
When these boys and girls come to know Christ, part of them following Christ is sharing their newfound faith.
The clubs also minister to children in churches, homes, and online. Bottom line, Pry says they are not concerned about the Satan clubs in light of God's sovereignty and the role of parents.
The reality is, parents are the gatekeepers for all the clubs in schools because you know what? All of them need permission slips signed by parents. So parents hold the power. Parents are the ones that control the Satan clubs because if no children sign up, the Satan Club isn't going to exist.
Matt Staver, the Good News Club's counsel, says the Satan Club tactic is a smokescreen. It has worked in a few cases where school boards have shut down all after-school clubs after parents complained about the Satan clubs.
They're only intended not to be legitimate clubs, but to make schools intimidated so that they would close the forum to Christian clubs like the Good News Club.
In Chesapeake, the Satan Club has yet to meet after the school district cited security concerns and told the club it would need to pay for public safety officers at its meetings. Ultimately, Pastor Williams says he's not concerned.
Jesus himself told us centuries ago, as he spoke to his disciples, that he would build his church, he would build his kingdom. And the gates of hell in any format aren't going to prevail against his church.
And Williams says even if his church can't sponsor the club in the public school, it will continue to serve its staff and families.
In the end, our team was well trained. They have a great relationship. They have a long history. We love that school. We'll be involved in that school no matter what happens.
Reporting in Chesapeake, Virginia, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Still ahead, it's a battle in Texas over abortion pills. See why some say this abortion method should be banned. Stay with us. Abortion rights and pro-life advocates are squaring off in Texas in a high-profile battle over abortion. Some pro-life doctors filed a lawsuit claiming the U.S. Food and Drug Administration exceeded its authority when it approved mifepristone, a drug used in chemically induced abortions. The doctors contend their patients are experiencing medical complications from the so-called abortion pill. Democrats say women would suffer if the pill is pulled from use in the United States. But on this week's episode of The Global Lane, Pastor James Harden contends the chemical abortion method should be banned because it harms women.
Not just, obviously harming women in terms of the sepsis and the hemorrhaging. 1 in 10 women are being sent to the emergency room after starting this chemical abortion process. That's on the surface. The reason why this lawsuit is so important is because the FDA violated their legal obligation to make sure this drug was safe. And it didn't do that either in the beginning during the Clinton administration, and it still has not done that with the Biden administration. And the Biden administration just flat out deregulated it on January 3rd before the 118th Congress could get in session. They tried to do as much as they possibly could. They got the camel's nose under the tent with COVID, being able to send these drugs in the mail, by the way, which is also illegal according to current U.S. Code, Title 18, paragraphs 1461 and 1462. This drug has violated all sorts of FDA protocols. The FDA has turned a blind eye to it, which means the FDA has been politicized.
With a Supreme Court decision in effect overturning Roe versus Wade last year, we're seeing many legal battles like this one in the states. So are states successfully enacting new restrictions on abortion without having their decisions overturned? Will all of these new laws end up at the Supreme Court?
Yeah, states are engaging the restrictions on abortion post-Roe. It's very effective, and it's not likely that many of them, if any, are going to be going to the Supreme Court, since the Supreme Court, we know how they're going to rule. It's just unlikely that they would pick up any other cases relative to state restrictions. It's the state's purview, and it's going to stay there. So I hope that the states continue to enact restrictions as they should. And we'll see what happens with some of these more liberal states, because those are the laws, and the deregulation of abortion is going to be kind of on the docket in the coming weeks and months and years.
On the matter of attacks against pro-life pregnancy centers, yours in Buffalo was firebombed last year in June. It wasn't until 5 months later, after the midterm election, that the FBI posted a reward for information and help from the public in finding a suspect. Are the feds making progress on these pro-life facility and church attacks, or are they still dragging their feet?
That's a good question, Gary, and the answer is they're still dragging their feet. The arrests that they made, I mean, if you provide or refer for abortions and there's something that happens, you're attacked, and you're gonna find that they're gonna find the perpetrators within days, and that's what we saw. Kalamazoo, Michigan was an attempted arson attack on a Planned Parenthood, and they put together within hours a joint federal law enforcement task force, reviewed the video surveillance, and engaged in forensic analysis, and they found and arrested the perpetrator within 4 days. And he was rightly so arrested, and I'm happy to see that justice was done there. However, you take a look at how they've treated pregnancy centers. That there's a bona fide concerted effort to attack pro-life organizations all across this country. There have been over 230 attacks on pro-life entities in 2022 alone, and it took the FBI 5 weeks just to even review our video surveillance. I mean, they've only made 2 arrests. Actually, they've made 2 indictments. I don't want to say that they've made arrests because I don't know that they're in custody down in Florida of people that have engaged in graffiti acts against pro-life pregnancy centers in southern Florida. This is, it's just the FBI. The award money that they put out there is just the FBI placating the House Judiciary Committee, making it look like they're acting and then getting results. But what matters with the FBI is results, and they're not getting any results.
Well, let's go one step further. Then, of course, there was that dawn FBI SWAT team-like raid and arrest of pro-life advocate Mark Houck at his Pennsylvania home. A jury recently acquitted him on federal charges. It looks like he may sue the FBI for excessive use of force, wrongful arrest. So what effect might his arrest and possible lawsuit have on deterring government discrimination, perhaps persecution against pro-lifers?
Did Mark receive justice? And the answer is no. Justice will not be done until there's the spotlight of investigation is shined directly on the DOJ and the FBI for being politicized and using their power, or allowing their power to be co-opted by a political agenda. And so I'm glad that potentially a lawsuit's moving forward. I've been saying for months that someone needs to sue the FBI for the deprivation of rights of certain citizens, particularly pro-life citizens.
Coming up, revival continues at Asbury University. We're going to take you there after this quick break. Welcome back. It's been more than a week since a regular Wednesday chapel at Asbury University in Kentucky turned into something far more, a revival. God has been moving among the students and faculty, and people are traveling to the university to join in this move of God. Wendy Griffith is there and captured some of the revival earlier this week, and here are some highlights.
In the last 2 evenings, we've estimated well over 3,000 people that are here and at these different locations to worship the Lord.
Were you prepared for this?
No, there's no playbook for this. We're still trying to create some space for what's happening here. And so that's a delicate balance, and we're trying to manage that as thoughtfully and faithfully as we can and just steward what's happening on campus.
I was definitely a bit skeptical at first just because growing up with my church, we never had anything like this, and so I just wasn't used to the idea of a revival. But the longer it's gone on, I've realized that if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen.
My prayer is that this will encourage churches, encourage pastors, encourage just believers, and just stir up a hunger for the Lord, because again, it's not about Asbury, it's about Jesus.
It's wonderful to see the 700 Club will have an in-depth report on the Asbury revival on Friday. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.